So I would like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. David Rich, who is an environmental epidemiologist and a professor in the Department Public Health Science, Medicine, and Environmental Medicine at University of Rochester School of Medicine and Dentistry. He's also a research director of the division in epidemiology. His primary research interests are reproductive and cardiorespiratory health effect of ambient air pollution, with particular interest in maternal air pollution exposure during pregnancy, effect on placenta development and function, metabolic dysfunction, systematic inflammation, and any results effect on fetal growth and development. Dr. Rich also conducts accountability studies assessing the effect of air quality and environmental policies on air pollutant emission and ambient air pollution concentration, mobility, and mortality in human population in the United States and also in China. And Dr. Rich's research has been funded by NIEHS, HEI Health Effect Institute, and also New York State Energy Research and Development Authority. And today, Dr. Rich talk is on gestational air pollution exposure and association with measure of maternal, fetal, and placenta biology. Welcome.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the time and thank you so much for the invitation. It's always a great time to come. So this is just some work that we're just finishing now. There'll be some more coming from it, but it's based on my research group's real interest in trying to understand how air pollution exposures during pregnancy may affect fetal growth. And we'll talk just some basics about that as here in a minute. All right, so we've all asked that question, and many in this room have contributed to all the different endpoints and studies that are kind of trying to be summarized here. But looking, does air quality impact birth outcomes? And this has been shown around the world, looking at preterm birth, looking at various measures of fetal growth, various measures of attained size at birth. I think now we get yelled at if we don't try to separately say those things. We can't say they're the same thing anymore. But we can look certainly as well at pregnancy complications and stillbirth and birth defects, fetal death, all of these outcomes being assessed with air pollution. And again, a lot of them had been done using basic birth certificate data and using existing air pollution monitoring data, which makes for a very nice and quick, clean project in that there's not any time needed for data collection. Right, and this is just to give you an example, what was done a lot of the time using these data. This is a pooled analysis across 13 studies around the world. We were involved in this and using some of our New Jersey data. And this is saying that so for every 10 microgram per cubic meter increase in PM 2.5, there was a 10% increase in the odds of being a low birth weight baby. Again, for a term birth, being below 2,500 grams was considered a low birth weight baby. Right? And for PM10, same basic idea, you would have about a 3% increased odds of being a low birth weight baby. So a lot of the analyses were somewhat simple like this. Other newer analyses then went on, and this is one of the first ones that has done it. Now several other studies around the world have been looking specifically more at fetal growth and using ultrasounds, those measures of, let's say, femur length and biparietal diameter, abdominal circumference or abdominal area, abdominal diameter, all these different measures that they would measure on that ultrasound and looking either at them at one point in time during pregnancy or changes across the pregnancy. And they would say, okay, well, increases in pollution as they did here were associated with decrements in those measures of fetal growth. And so a lot of the work has then been asking, as our group has, certainly by what mechanisms might these be occurring, right? And so how we got involved, my group got involved, really was back in 2008 when we were doing some other studies. I think Lena was doing some work with this as well, looking at taking advantage of the 2008 Beijing Summer Olympics. It's been so long now, I feel like I have to explain it in more greater detail than I used to. But generally, this is the nice big press release photo of the Bird's Nest Stadium in Beijing, a beautiful blue sky day. But clearly that was not always the case in the times before that. So in order to get the games, the Chinese government had to promise to do lots of different things to bring the air pollution levels down to those of other countries that had hosted the Olympics before that. And they had several tiered actions in which they were going to do. So you can imagine, as I say this, imagine them actually trying to do this in Western New York and having people respond to this and say, okay, sure. But they would say they're going to keep 1 million high emitting vehicles off the road. They're going to shut down all smelting and steel plants, industry, power plants outside of what they were doing, but stop construction work, spraying, spray painting, welding. They were going to have cars drive around, trucks to spray the road to keep road dust down. And they had planes flying through the air, through the clouds to seed them to induce rain, really trying to bring levels down. That all would occur from July 25th through the end of the games and through the end of the Paralympic Games. Then they had Tier 2 was meant to be in addition to that. Again, pulling more cars off the road, shutting down additional factories. And then if there was any emergency actions, which there was, this didn't work for Tier 1 and 2, they had to implement Tier 3, was they pulled off half the cars off the road every day. So based on what your license plate number was on whether or not you could drive, right? And then they shut down a lot of these same cars and industrial facilities regionally, not just in the city of Beijing. Okay? And so a lot of these came and resulted in a concentration reduction of about 40 to 60% across the different pollutants, all but ozone, of course. Right. And so what I'm showing you here, this is our monitoring station. We had done one study at the local hospital in central Beijing, and we had our air pollution monitor there on the roof of the hospital to measure daily concentrations of several different pollutants. And we always use this to say this is a more typical day where you see lack of visibility, obviously indicating lots of pollution. When we started this study in Beijing, the average PM2.5 concentration during that time was about 125 micrograms per cubic meter, clearly much lower now. Still high, but much lower now. And I looked before I came up here to say, well, what's Buffalo right now? And it's 9. So we're slightly lower concentrations here in Buffalo. And I always give that when I talk to my students that we're now used to much lower concentrations, but at the time, this was a normal day. All right. And so during the games, when all of those actions would occur, this was a typical day during that time where you had much better visibility and concentrations. Again, PM2.5, I believe, went down by about 50% or so. Right? And so what we did as our study was to take advantage of this and think of it as an accountability study, essentially saying, well, if air pollution is in fact a causal agent for fetal growth restriction or problems with fetal growth, then when air pollution levels go down, we should see improvements in some measure of fetal growth or some measure of attained size at birth. And that's what this study was intending to do. And so we took advantage of already collected essentially birth certificate data, but data collected by the Beijing Maternal and Child Health Agency. And this was, again, those 4 central Beijing districts. The Forbidden City is in orange there at the very center of that. That's where the Forbidden City is, just for reference. Right? And this was, again, all births that had a gestational week greater than 28 weeks. Similar, again, to the birth certificate, but we did not have any data on sex or whether or not it was a C-section or not. So the comparison, again, was to look at all the births that had part of their pregnancy during the Olympic period in 2008, and then compare them to pregnancies that had their part of their pregnancy during the same calendar dates in 2007 when air pollution levels were much higher, or in 2009 when air pollution levels were much higher. And that was the basic comparison. Right? And so just the kind of unadjusted analysis here was, for example, if we looked specifically at the 8th month of pregnancy, there was 3,198 pregnancies that had their 8th month of pregnancies between August 8th and September 24th. And this was the period of the Olympics and the Paralympics. Right? Of those term births, these were all term births, the mean birth weight was 3,431 grams. If we look specifically in 2007 and say, again, if your 8th month of pregnancy was during those same dates in that year, we have 2,800 births essentially, and the birth weight there, the mean birth weight at least, was 3,409. And you could do the same thing in 2009 as well. And again, it's not a large difference, but the babies were born bigger in 2008 than compared to the years before when air pollution levels were higher. Again, this is an average change. There was certainly more that was much bigger. And so as an epidemiologist, I can't do anything without doing some more formal analyses. looking at all kinds of confounders and things like this. And no matter how we modeled these, we looked at each of the months of pregnancy, and we still see in that 8th month of pregnancy, even after adjusting for potential confounders, that there was still an increase in birth weight associated with just being in 2008 during the Olympics compared to the year before and the year after, right? So that got our group thinking a little bit, and certainly after we were done with this and saying, well, okay, if that is truly a cause, then by what mechanisms may that be occurring? Right. And again, lots of people in this room are have had the same questions and thoughts. So our thought at the time was to repeat this study in Beijing, but looking at things like measuring it in the mom in some sort of maternal blood or even in maternal urine. Here, what we're talking about is you would expect perhaps some sort of pulmonary response leading to some sort of systemic immune response, measurable in maternal blood or maternal plasma. You could then expect that also could have effects on the placental development. Not only how big the placenta is and things like that, but thinking a bit about the vasculature and how well the arteries are developed, how well the veins are developed, and how well the placenta is able to deliver the nutrients and other items that needed for proper fetal growth. Right? And so we can look specifically, and I'll talk to you a bit of some of our findings here on the placenta itself. And all of those, and both of those would obviously, bless you, would also be thought to have some effects perhaps on the placenta, and then therefore whether or not that placenta can grow properly as well. So the clinical outcomes we might see seen in the OBGYN is, remember those ultrasounds, maybe some smaller than expected femur lengths and things like that. Or if we're talking about a attained size at birth, a baby that is, even if it's a term birth, might be born small. Right, so these types of measures, and this was the idea behind the study. Now, we started the study in Beijing in our current president's first administration for what political reasons needed to move that back here to the US. So we started that, and we were able to take advantage of an existing cohort study in Rochester, New York, the ECHO Upside study, which I'll talk to you about here in a minute. So, but the basic idea behind this was to say, well, let's look specifically at PM 2.5 and NO2. These are our two pollutants where I'll show you we developed some spatial temporal models for it. Certainly nothing as novel as what you just heard in the previous talk. But we're looking specifically at gestational weeks. So we want to know not only is air pollution during pregnancy associated with some of these biomarkers, some of these mechanisms, but in fact when is also as important. We can think a bit. So our first aim was looking at PM 2.5 and NO2 exposures during pregnancy, and looking at effects on immune function and oxidative stress. All right. The second was looking at the pollutants' effects on placental vascular development, specifically arterial development is what I'll talk to you a bit about. We're also looking, which I won't have time to talk to you about today, but looking specifically at DNA methylation of some of these imprinted genes in the placenta. Some thoughts are certainly that there's normal imprinted genes for several of these in the placenta, and normally there is DNA methylation occurring of those. And if somehow air pollution is altering that DNA methylation, that could perhaps be one of the reasons why we're seeing some of these perhaps placental outcome changes. And again, I don't have any much beyond that, but that's at least that paper will be hopefully coming out soon. And then aim 3 was looking at metabolic function measures. And then aim 4, again, is ongoing, but trying to do some more formal causal mediation analyses. Do the mechanisms or anything we find in the first 3 aims really provide some sort of mediation? Are these the mechanisms by which air pollution might lead to that reduced fetal growth? Okay. So again, the cohort study is 326 pregnant women in Rochester, New York. These are recruited and followed generally from 2015 to 2019. Again, it was before COVID, which was very nice to have that finished by the time we were trying to look at these data. These are singleton pregnancies over the age of 18 years and older, no known history of substance abuse, psychotic illness, and they certainly had to have the ability to communicate in English, at least for this study. A few exclusion criteria just meant to obviously we can't be looking at preterm births if we're looking at fetal growth. All right. And so a lot of these criteria, we can talk a bit more, but these were the main inclusion-exclusion criteria of the study. The protocol was very similar to others that have been done. There was 3 visits for the study that occurred. The first early pregnancy visit Turned out it was occurred anywhere between weeks 6 to 14, on average about 12 weeks. And at that first visit, there was blood and urine samples collected, sociodemographic information collected, psychological assessments, health behaviors, nutritional. Again, this study was done for a lot more than looking at air pollution effects on these outcomes. So there's quite a lot of data that we don't actually use, but was collected. And then they had mid-pregnancy and late pregnancy visits as well. And I'll talk to you a bit more about those. Some of these outcomes, again, that we're interested in, we can measure it multiple times during the pregnancy as well. We developed spatial temporal models. This was done by our Duke colleagues, and Dr. Meng Wang was involved in this as well, looking specifically at 1 kilometer squared grids and estimating concentrations of PM2.5 and NO2 in those grids. And then depending on where our study subjects lived, what grid they lived in, they'd be assigned daily concentrations from that grid cell. Right? And then we would take those for the analyses I'll talk to you about, and calculated weekly concentrations for a specific gestational week of pregnancy for each subject. The outcomes, again, there was many that I will not be able to go through today. The ones in yellow I will try to touch on. But we had several, again, that were measured in 3 time points during pregnancy, various looking at immune markers and oxidative stress. I'll talk to you a bit more about the sex hormones that we investigated. At birth, obviously, these are collected only once at birth, the placenta being the primary, and I'll talk to you a bit more about that, as well as I said about the DNA methylation of the placental imprinted genes. And so first outcome is our immune function outcomes. Again, we've seen a lot of and do a lot of immune function analyses when we're talking about older adults and cardiorespiratory outcomes. Certainly these cytokines and other immune function markers have different jobs during pregnancy. So when we would expect to see perhaps an increase in a marker outside of pregnancy, perhaps during pregnancy, that is not always the case. So these were measured in maternal plasma, and they were assayed all together using our Luminex platform at the U of R. And this was done, our doctoral student, Kathy Yunt's work. Right. The basic model was a generalized additive model. Again, remember, we have 3 visits per subject. And first analysis, we put all of those together and then regressed the log of the immune marker against PM2.5, let's say on day 0, and then adjusting for various confounders, the covariates that are listed below, that were shown to be significant predictors of those immune markers. Right? And then we applied some more smooths to those so to make sure they're not just a linear function. And then we reran that model for PM2.5 and NO2 on a series of lag day combinations, essentially trying to assay anywhere from the day of the measurement out to about a 7-day average in the previous week or so. Right? And then we reran that model, again, putting an interaction term for visit, trying to say, again, is there something different about the immune response to pollution in the early pregnancy versus the mid-pregnancy versus late pregnancy? Okay? And so you'll see here, if I can point, yes. So looking at IL-10, for example, this is looking at the entire pregnancy, and this says for every 7.82 ppb increase in NO2 concentration I believe this is looking at this in the previous 4 days, I believe is what this was. We see an increase in IL-10 concentration. If you look at the second model, when we allowed ourselves to look at each of these different time periods separately, we see generally an increase in that association. For the same increase in pollution, you get a larger increase in IL-10. So we found, and this is, as you can see, the ones presented here, and this is mostly for the immune markers we observed, generally consistent patterns across that we would see increases in all of them, immune activation, but that immune activation was even greater late in pregnancy. Okay? The focus is on regulatory cytokines here. That's where we saw the largest effects, but this was a relatively healthy population, so probably shouldn't put too much into that finding, but we do see associations with all kinds of other groups as well. All right. Next, we looked at placental vascular development. Again, we can look at how well did the placenta grow, and obviously there's things there where you can look at just the size of the placenta, but this is work led by Carrie Salafia and her team at Placental Analytics, where they're doing some graphing and mapping of where the arteries are, where the veins are, and then different features of those arteries, not only how big they are and where they're located, but how much turns they have, how many branches are there, these types of things that all give us hopefully some help in thinking about how well the placenta is doing at delivering nutrients to the fetus. right? So we had 17 outcomes that came from this. I'll talk to you about just that one in yellow. And again, these are all developed from those same images, right? The statistical analysis here is a distributed lag model. The idea behind a distributed lag model is it says we have, again, remember, we have gestational week pollutant concentrations. I have 38 of them, let's say, for a term birth. I can put them all in the same model. And what it assumes is that there's a linear dose-response relationship at each gestational week, relationship between the pollution and that endpoint, but that the functional form of that shape across the pregnancy can be nonlinear. And this model allowed that kind of a relationship. There was a penalized spline with a cubic regression spline smoother used to determine, well, what would you think is the degrees of freedom? What is the shape of the functional form of that relationship across pregnancy? Right, and then we can use this to tell us, are there any susceptible periods during pregnancy where it looks like increases in pollution are causing some sort of increase or decrease in this outcome specifically, right? And also allows us certainly to adjust for confounders. Again, this is just an example of one of these models. There was several there where we found associations. This is looking at the number of arterial generations. How many arteries are there in the placenta itself? And we see that when NO2 went up by about 9 parts per billion in a gestational week, during weeks 18 to 37, that was associated with a 1.30 decrease in the number of arterial generations on average, right? Again, suggesting, and this was in late, obviously mid to late pregnancy where we're seeing these associations, right? And I won't go too much through these, but there was lots of different endpoints and groups. And we don't want to think of these all as individual endpoints, but more get you to think about a placental phenotype. Is there some group of outcomes that are shaped slightly differently so that your placenta, not only the vasculature is altered, but perhaps the placenta and its ability to, again, deliver nutrients is altered by that. So more work is going to be coming, looking at thinking about these kind of platelet phenotypes that might come from this. The last I'll talk to you about is sex hormones. Think about when we talk about sex hormones, endocrine disruption effects. We talk about that all the time with things like phthalates, as even PFOS and PFOA that we're going to hear more about. We think about those as well. This was meant this was with Emily Barrett and her work again, but looking at these values. Now, remember, we had 3 different time points for these measures, and we had to do a little work here to make an estimate. So everyone had an estimate of, total testosterone at week 14, at week 22, and week 30. Right? And we can look at the 2 testosterone measures and the 3 estrogen measures. Okay? And so we can run a separate distributed lag model for the week 14 measures, a separate one for week 22, and a separate for week 30. Right? And what we see again here, just as an example, here's total testosterone. We see that during week 0 to 10, at the beginning of pregnancy, increases in NO2, again, were associated with an increase in total testosterone. And then those same increases later in pregnancy were associated with a decrease. Right? And there's more work certainly that needs to be done on that, but the thought is certainly that's likely some sort of compensatory mechanism in the late pregnancy, right? And maybe perhaps that altered testosterone levels is really the important part in early pregnancy. Right? And I won't go through these, but we would look at the same types of relationships with estrogens, same types of concepts, at least with the issue of seeing early pregnancy effects and then seeing what we think are compensatory mechanisms occurring later. Okay. So the general strengths and limitations of all of this work, again, I've just summarized just very briefly some of it. We do have some sort of limited exposure misclassification, certainly by using these spatial temporal models. These are 1 kilometer squared grids, so very relatively fine spatial gradients. We can say, again, as Buffalo is another one of these cities, we see these low air pollution cities now. It's nice to say Rochester is a low air pollution city because God knows for the longest time it wasn't. We think of this, but a very common scenario in the post-industrial Northeast United States. As the economy has changed, so has the environmental impact on health, we hope. We do have some limited statistical power given the sample size. Certainly we can't for placental outcomes. We can only look at the placenta at birth. Ideally, I'd love to be able to see the placenta and do these same type of assessments early in pregnancy. Clearly, that's not possible. One thing on the distributed lag, Marina's not here, else she would be laughing. You know, for me to up here to be talking about statistical significance kind of rolls my eyes. So I think it's the limitation in this model is that it does rely a bit on statistical significance. There's some newer models out, some Bayesian methods that I think are going to be a little bit more practical for this, but we will, you know, the next study will have those applied. So basic conclusions, we've seen increased immune activation and dysregulation, increased oxidative stress measures, some sort of altered testosterone and estrogens. Certainly the placenta is one of our stronger findings, finding all kinds of different aspects affected by air pollution, arterial vasculature specifically. We've seen hyperglycemia responses, perhaps some issues leading to gestational diabetes, some altered fetal growth measured via the ultrasounds, where we did not see, as we saw in Beijing before, any alterations in attained size at birth. So still work to be done is certainly the mediation analyses I discussed and some sort of synthesis of these findings. And again, all of these things are occurring. We need to be careful that we're not ever thinking of these as one at a time. Certainly what happens to the immune function is going to have an effect on placenta, which is going to have an effect on some other measures as well. And we need to be thinking about kind of ways to synthesize these and do some analyses looking at them as a group. Right. And I will say that please look for the papers. It's kind of be a cool finding. We hope the DNA methylation work will be coming out hopefully soon. So with that, I want to thank specifically Jim Zhang, who's my MPI on this work, and the wonderful team we have at the U of R at Duke University as well. So with that, I'll stop and take questions.
David, questions? Time for questions.
I didn't see you doing some sort of adjustment for seasonality. There's got to be season changes. How do you manage that within these analyses?
So certainly that's one of the variables that we would always evaluate as a potential confounder here. Again, you'd expect that clearly related to pollution. And there could clearly, in some of these health outcomes, although maybe not quite as strong as we would think of for other outcomes, clinical outcomes at least. But those are evaluated as potential confounders, just like you did. We, you know, our DAGs had them included, but when we went to evaluate whether or not they were, in fact, associated with a significant increase or decrease in any of the outcomes, they were not. So generally, for the most part, that was evaluated, but not seen as an important confounder.
Thank you. Any more questions? Here. David, I'm really fascinated by your work on the placenta measurement. Can you share a little bit the experience of the collecting and doing all those measurements?
Well, I was going to say I was not the one doing that, but that team, this was led by Rich Miller at the University of Rochester, and again, Carrie did the analyses, but Rich's team and Tom O'Connor. But what they had a staff of folks that, you know, as you know, these are certainly not coming in for clinic visits always during the middle of the day. So there was a team that would always be on duty, and if one of the moms in the study came in for delivery, the team would race there to be there to collect the placenta, whatever time of night. And they would, as you saw in those pictures, you know, they had a very standard way in which they had to take the set of pictures. Good quality images are very important here. You know, and they would, to allow the team that does the analyses, that would do, you know, draw where are the arteries, where are the veins, how close are they, and all the different measures of the different groupings that were done. So it was really quite a lot of time on trying to make sure the images were of sufficient quality. That was one of the limitations. You had 326 women. Not all the women obviously agreed for their placenta to donate it to the study. And those that did, there were some that we had to throw out just because the images weren't of sufficient quality. So we came, I think we had 188, I want to say, out of 326, but certainly a very big learning curve. This is now, again, they're doing more work with this in the echo cohorts in other echo studies outside of just Rochester and Pittsburgh, our two studies.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thank you.
Any more questions? All right, thank you so much, David.
Okay, so hello everyone. So we will get started. So first, it's my great pleasure to introduce our first speaker in this afternoon session, Dr. Kang Sun. So Dr. Sun is an associate professor of environmental engineering at University of Buffalo. He received his bachelor's degree in environmental science from Peking University and a PhD in environmental engineering from Princeton University. He worked as after that, he worked as a postdoc and atmospheric physicist at Harvard University before joining UB in 2018. His research focuses on chemistry and physics of the Earth's atmosphere and their applications for air quality, public health, and the climate. He is also the Career Award recipient in 2024. So Dr. Sun's talk today is entitled Accurate and Timely Quantification of Air Pollution Sources by Satellites. So welcome.
I have my mic. Thank you. Thank you, Meng, for the introduction, and also special thanks for Lina for the invitation and the great food. That's very nice. Yeah, so my research, so my office is in the North Campus. I'm in Jarvis Hall. So my research is really on the quantification of the emissions of air pollutants. So we have heard a lot about the health effect of air pollution, and I'm looking at where those air pollutants are coming from and how can we observe them and how can we quantify their sources. So the main tools for my research are satellites, and specifically I use those two sensors most. So Tempo is a geostationary satellite. It's a very new, it's the state of the art. So it's geostationary, that means it stays above North America and it can continuously scan the evolution of air pollution during the daytime. So this Sentinel-5 precursor is the name of the platform. The actual sensor is called Chapo-Me. So you will hear about the name of the sensor multiple times in my talk. So this is a global mapper. So that means it can scan the entire world every day. But as a result, it can only cover the same area on the Earth once per day. So there are pros and cons for both kind of instruments, global mapper versus geostationary, but they are powerful, and both of those are our strongest tools to tackle air pollution. Okay, so for this audience, in terms of the health effect and assessment of exposures, I guess we are most familiar with the ground-based sensors. So here I'm plotting the spatial distributions of EPA's ground-based monitoring of NO2, nitrogen dioxide, which is a pretty significant air pollutant. But although those data are kind of the golden standard of exposure assessment, you can see they are pretty sparse, even over a developed country as the United States. And for my work specifically, if I want to understand where those emissions are coming from, those sensor measurements at the ground, it's pretty complicated to interpolate. That means we need to consider both the horizontal transport of the atmosphere where the wind is blowing, and also the vertical dispersion, right? Consider the same level of emissions and same in general burden of pollutants in the atmosphere, but if the pollutants are concentrated near the surface, you are going to have a much higher reading by those ground sensors. And also a really unappreciated fact is that most of the current EPA's N2O sensors are biased by some higher level oxidants. So, and when we look at the satellite observations, one main advantage over those ground sites is that they can provide a complete spatial coverage. So the background map, so you can see those hotspots in the cities, those are from satellite. With a big caveat is that you have to average the satellite data over some time, because individual satellite observations will have data missing due to cloud coverage. Right? If you look at the map of the Earth at any given time, you will see about 2/3 of the Earth is covered by cloud. And another advantage of satellite is that it provides the vertical column. So that means it measures how many molecules or pollutants are there over a unit area on Earth. So the vertically integrated concentration. So that makes it easier to relate those satellite data to emissions. And also those satellite instruments, once they are launched in space, they are operating continuously, and the data are downlinked at near real time. So that means you can get the data without much effort, and they are continuous. Okay, so the objective of this research is to develop a robust and lightweight algorithm. That is really something I'm going after. I want the algorithm to identify the emissions to be computationally efficient. And we want to leverage those nice satellite observations, which measures where the pollutions are, and we want to generate knowledge about where the pollutions are coming from. And in the end, I will touch upon some ongoing work to fill the gaps of satellite observations, right? So if you do not have enough time to do average, and then you will have to deal with the missing parts of satellite images, and how are we going to do that? Okay, just a little bit of background information on the chemistry of air pollution. So this is a complicated chemical processes in the atmosphere, but we just highlight those two branches. So one branch is the ultimate formation of ozone, and the one on the right, that's the formation of PM 2.5. So you can see largely those are generated by various chemical reactions in the atmosphere. So ozone and the majority of PM 2.5 are not directly emitted. So those are the sources, primary sources, and they are emitting those so-called primary pollutants, including VOCs, sulfur dioxide, and NOx. But then ozone and PM 2.5 are generated by those reactions. So that means to understand those critical pollutants, we need to understand the chemistry. And luckily, many of those molecules in this graph can be measured by satellites. And here we will devote most of our time on NO2, nitrogen dioxide, because it takes the majority of the NOx chemical family, and it's at the center stage of atmospheric chemistry. So it is regulated by EPA as a primary pollutant. And as you can see, it has arrows to both the formation of ozone and PM 2.5. Okay, so here is the theory, how we use this lightweight algorithm to convert satellite observations to the emission sources. So that simple equation, we devoted a lot of efforts on building up the theory. We justified the assumptions, but here are the results. The emission E can be calculated by adding those a few terms. So the first is tendency. Okay, so that just means if you focus on a given area, how fast the pollution are going to accumulate. Okay, so if you have some power plant that is releasing chemicals into the atmosphere, you should see the concentration increase over time. Okay, and then the second is the advection term. So this advection. So that is really the key term to map out emission, because the tendency term, if you average over a long time, it will become zero. By the advection, when you average advection, you will get a pretty clear picture of where the emission sources are. So when you look at the equation, in this particular month, this city was emitting less pollutants than the business as usual scenario, right? So clearly we saw the initial impact of the lockdown at 2020 in all those 4 cities. But the stories kind of diverged afterwards. And we know in China, especially in Shanghai, there were multiple rounds of lockdowns in 2022. And those were definitely reflected in the emission. So those kind of data were only possible by the satellite data. Right? So if we use a bottom-up approach in a traditional way to build a data set of emissions, that will be much, much slower. That cannot cannot capture this rapid dynamic. Okay, and then I want to say something about atmospheric models. So a model is like a digital twin of the atmosphere. Right? So it divides the atmosphere into grid, and then in each grid cell, it solves the equations that governs the transport, emission, and chemistry of the atmosphere. So basically, in the model, we know everything, and we use this model to evaluate our approach. Right? Remember, we use a very simple equation. It's a one-liner to derive the emissions, but there are multiple assumptions. So in the model, we can verify those assumptions and see if our estimates are accurate or not. And eventually, our data-driven emission product will benefit the model by providing the emissions into the model. So I'm just highlighting this model we use. So here is the model simulated concentration, and then we kind of fit in this concentration in the equation, and then we derive the emission as if those concentrations were observed by satellites, and then we compare with the true model emission. And then we can evaluate different assumptions and how we'll best reproduce the model emission. So this is a Taylor diagram. It's complicated, but the bottom line is this black star is perfect. It's perfect reproduction of the model results. And by adding the topography and chemistry term, we can produce more accurate estimation. We can reproduce the model results better. Okay, so finally, I will just quickly say something about the future directions. So in individual day, we can see the cloud coverage that's blocking most of a significant chunk of the satellite image. And by leveraging the current advance of the generative machine learning algorithm, we are trying to gap fill those missing data by taking in the information in the parts that are not blocked by clouds. Okay, to conclude, I want to going back to the global equity issue. So if we look at the ground-based stations, they are very sparse and very unevenly distributed. But then if we look at the global map, this is again the topography data. We can see it has no discrimination about countries and regions. And finally, we also want to support open science by making all those algorithms open source as well as the tutorials. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Sun, for the very nice presentation. So let's see if there's any questions. Any question? Oh.
Thank you for the talk. I have a quick question about your reference to the topography data that's included in the model. I noticed that you were really looking a lot at cities and air pollution related to cities. I'm wondering if some of the topographical information that you're including is both vertical infrastructure as well as horizontal. And the source of that question comes out of some of the sort of work on cities and the capacity for really tall buildings to modify microclimate, atmospheric events, and do things like increase rainfall, increase heat, et cetera.
Oh yeah, that's a very important consideration, and that will become important when the size of the satellite pixels are comparable to the downtown area where you have really high buildings that alter the topography. So in the current, the two sensors we are using, the pixels are in the order of 2 to 6 kilometers. So that means they do not, I mean, the local building, that the impact on topography, that may not be a significant source of bias or error. But it will become important if we went to, if we go to, say, airborne measurements, or in the future when satellites become really powerful on resolving those block scale. That will be some consideration. That means our topography data will have to incorporate those man-made structures.
So any other questions? Okay, so maybe I can ask one more question. So yeah, so actually this morning I talked to with David about this. So the EPA usually they update their emission inventory late, right?
Yeah.
So usually if we want to say 2025 year emission, but that's not available, maybe available in 2 or 3 years later. So it looks like the satellite data provide potential to provide like a timely emission inventory. So do you think that for example, is it possible using your satellite data to identify like wildfire emission sources, for example?
Oh, I thought you will your question will be easier on others. But yeah, wildfire is a real challenge. So that's because the satellite observations on wildfires, the common assumptions used in the retrieval will not be valid, like the vertical distribution. The vertical distribution in the wildfire plume will be different. And also aerosols will, if you do not specifically explicitly consider aerosol in the retrieval algorithm, that will make the algorithm, the result very, very inaccurate. So I think the solution, well, yes, it's possible to apply the same methods, but there we will need more work on a specialized retrieval algorithm at the wildfire plume to accurately identify the emissions. And also, since wildfire emissions are changing all the time, you need to add that tendency term. Remember that equation, the first term is usually ignored, but for wildfire, we need that term.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Lisa Neff, and as the Assistant Dean for Community Engagement, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce Chris Morosky, the Executive Director of the Clean Air Coalition of Western New York. Chris has been leading the efforts of organizing for environmental justice and improving public health within disadvantaged communities in Western New York with clean air since 2021. Previously, he has worked at Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper, serving as the Director of Community Engagement, and has over 15 years of experience in the environmental nonprofit field. In the community, Chris serves as a founding board member of the Friends of Freedom Park and sits on the advisory board for the Center for Occupational Health and Medicine. He has graduated from the organizing training from the Midwest Academy and the Ann Braden Anti-Racist Organizing Program. Please welcome Chris, whose talk today is entitled Community Organizing to Protect Public Health.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Does that sound okay with the microphone? Okay, great. First of all, yeah, thanks to Lena and Jennifer and the School of Public Health for inviting us here today to speak, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the other speakers as well. It's a treat for me. I don't usually get to hear presentations like this, so it's very intellectually stimulating, and I'm going to be looking to connect with you folks about how to use what you're studying in our work on air pollution here. So my name is Chris Morosky, and my pronouns are he and him, and I'm the Executive Director of Clean Air Coalition of Western New York. What time should I aim for? Because I know we're a little, okay, so like 2:18-ish. Okay, cool. So it's a longer presentation and we don't have as much time to get into all the details. So I'll do the best I can to speed through some stuff. This is just a little agenda. We'll skip through that. I usually tell a little personal story about who I am just to connect with the audience. I start with this guy. This guy is my grandfather, and his name is Joe Morosky. And he was born in Niagara Falls. He worked in the chemical industry in Niagara Falls. That's a picture of him when he was enlisted in the Army, like many of the generation of him that grew up in this area in the United States did at that time. I usually tell a little longer story, but the main reason I bring him up is, number one, he worked after the war, when he was served in World War II, came back to Niagara Falls and got a job as a welder in the chemical industry. And the organization that he worked for, the company that he worked for, is called Hooker Chemicals. So that's a pretty infamous name if you're associated with environmental justice, environmental health. So Hooker Chemicals is the one that did the Love Canal disaster, right? So my family, you know, he worked there. He raised 6 kids with my grandmother and put 4 of those kids through college. So our family gained wealth through that chemical industry. But at the same time, my grandfather paid for that with his health. Once he retired, he had all kinds of medical issues, working welding in chemical tanks for that company. And then the greater disaster in the community that was caused by the legacy of the chemical industry in Niagara Falls and Buffalo and Rochester, like other cities in Western New York. So that's just like kind of the legacy of why I get involved with this work, why I'm passionate about it, is our family benefited in a small way from it, but also, you know, was harmed with our health and our community being devastated by the amount of pollution left behind. So to skip forward. So as mentioned, I have about 15 years of experience in environmental health. I worked for Buffalo Niagara Waterkeeper, which is another environmental organization in Buffalo. And we worked on restoring Buffalo River and the Niagara River, local creeks, and spent a lot of time on that, spent a lot of time with educating folks about the issues that we need to work together to solve. And these are huge issues, obviously. A big legacy of industrial pollution in the area. So why we have all the health outcomes that we have, why we have all the pollution that we have. And for Clean Air, we're a local nonprofit group. We focus on environmental justice. We're known as like a frontline group. So when we're talking about all the outcomes and the statistics and the individuals, we're actually dealing with those individuals on a day-to-day basis that are affected by pollution. And we primarily focus on like working class communities, folks that, these aren't folks that have a lot of money. They're folks that you know, work hard and deserve, you know, protections from environmental pollution, but due to the systemic nature of injustice in this country and around the world, they're exposed disproportionately to pollution. So we work in environmental justice communities. Those are known as environmental justice communities, or you may hear disadvantaged communities. There's different names now that different programs are naming these communities, like where I live, to try to label to get more resources to them. So our mission is we develop grassroots leaders who run and win environmental justice campaigns. And so I'll talk about how we got started with the Tonawanda Coke campaign, but really what sets us apart is the way that we work with the community. So we don't go into communities telling the community what they need to do. The communities come to us with an issue of pollution, and we work with them. We work together with them to solve that issue. And we do a lot of work developing leaders and developing community members' skill sets of how to go about solving these problems. And we do that through direct community organizing. So bringing folks together that are affected to work together and build coalitions and build partnerships in order to gain enough power to do what we want to solve the issue in their community. Whether that be, you know, decreasing the pollution of a certain factory, whether that be shutting, we don't want to have this outcome really ever, but sometimes that operation needs to be shut down and it shouldn't exist in close proximity to people. So that's kind of what sets us apart. And we also really focus on our values a lot. So we value leadership development. So that is working with folks to give them skills on how to navigate these processes. Like environmental pollution regulation is a very complicated process, and it's also very non-inclusive of everyday working people, right? Like sometimes it's very technical, it's very science-based, it's very academic, and a lot of the work we do is kind of like translate that to a more general audience. So how do you go about dealing with the different agencies? I think, Patrick, you mentioned in your proposal about like non-scientific audiences, or in your presentation about non-scientific audiences, and how sometimes it's not understood how the regulations work. So we do a lot of like interpreting that to deal with like more of an everyday audience. We focus on environmental justice, as I mentioned. Democratic decision-making is really important in our work. So we work within our campaigns to make decisions together. Like, once again, it's not a top-down hierarchical method. It's like folks make decisions together, and then we work together. And we value the resident knowledge, like the folks that live in the communities have the knowledge. They know where the bodies are buried when it comes to pollution. Like they know, oh, this company goes, dumps something at this time, this day. And if we wanted to get a video of that, we would know, we would lean on those residents that are right there, on the front lines of the pollution. Race and class equity inclusion, like we're not backing down from that at all, like, because that would be not allow us to do proper power analysis, because race and class have everything to do with everything in this country and in our society. So we're not like, we're considering race and class in everything that we do. And we're about a multiracial organization and coalition. We have campaigns in primarily white working class neighborhoods, but also campaigns in primarily neighborhoods of Black and brown folks. So we work with everybody, and we try to come together in solidarity because we think that's really important. Really important too is appreciating and recognizing folks' work, because this is a lifetime work. Like this work is like my hair is getting gray. I've been doing this quite a while, so we're trying to bring up like the next generation of folks to do it. But we got to celebrate the wins that we have along the way, because a lot of this is like chipping away, and just like probably in a lot of the epidemiological work that you all do, it's slow. It's building on those that came before you, and it takes time. So we have to celebrate. That's a really big value. So let's get into some of our campaigns. So this is what got us started. The Tonawanda Coke Corporation in Tonawanda, New York. This is like a very industrial part of the region along River Road, like where the Grand Island Bridge is. It goes over to Grand Island. So Tonawanda Coke is they made Coke, which is a fuel for the steel industry, taking the coal and then through a bunch of different processes turning into Coke. We get a lot of byproducts from that process, like a lot of pollutants, a lot of carcinogenic compounds. And the community found that a lot of folks in the community were being sickened, because there's a really small community right near Tonawanda Coke, and those folks were really exposed to a lot. And they have air permits, they're under regulations from the state, New York State DEC and the EPA, but people were still getting sick. So they tried to force the state to monitor better, to like do more tests and do more studies, and that wasn't happening. So people organized together, and this is before the organization was a corporation, 501c3 or anything like that. We didn't have staff. It was more community volunteers. So they did their own air monitoring through this like bucket system where you could like, suck a little bit of air into a bucket, do it in a way that it can be transported to a lab and then analyzed for the different pollutants. What they did find was benzene was really highly elevated, and benzene is it's in a lot of like fossil fuel industry things. It's in gasoline, and it's highly carcinogenic. It's bad. So that was unacceptable. And what ended up happening, it's a very long story. I don't have enough time to tell it, but the regulators actually did their own studies. DEC did their own studies, Department of Health, and this company ended up being raided by the EPA, the DEC, and the Coast Guard. And also criminal charges were filed on the operators because they were operating such egregiously with environmental pollution going on. It is never our intent to shut a place down because we value that the places here, regardless of what the industry is, provide employment, and we need employment to support working families. But this company actually did shut down because with the regulations, they couldn't operate at the profits that they wanted to with playing by the rules, basically. So there was a lawsuit from the state, there was a settlement, there was money. UB got some of the money to study the health aspects of this. And then the community got some of the money, and we led like a democratic decision-making process of like how the money should be distributed. So 5 minutes left. Okay, cool. So we'll move on for Town of Coke. This is just like a really monumental, the stacks falling down of Town of Coke. And this is what the area looked like from above from a drone before the cleanup happened. It's in a brownfield cleanup right now, and that's another campaign that's ongoing of getting folks to make sure that when they do this cleanup, that it's a cleanup that benefits the community and that the community has input on. So another one that was in another residential area, this is in the Seneca Babcock neighborhood in City of Buffalo, was a concrete crushing facility that was operating right in this residential neighborhood. This is like off of Seneca Street, and Buffalo, this is Peabody Street. So the concrete crushing operation was here. The houses were here. So these folks on the street, especially the ones on this side, really were like right up against this operation. And they were breathing in silica dust from the concrete crushing. And so there's trucks going up and down. Imagine this residential street with like semis coming in and out, 20 to 30 trucks per day. The concrete, it's a very loud process. Imagine just crushing concrete, how loud that would be, and vibrating their houses. They couldn't enjoy like their yards or anything in the summer. So we got, that was where they heard of us through Tonawanda Coke, so they came to us to do a campaign. We found out through organizing and then putting pressure on the state, they were operating without an air permit for over 8 years. And so, because they're creating quite a bit of emissions here, and they weren't regulated. So after that happened, there was a lawsuit from the Attorney General that we were part of. And this is only after like protesting, like we had a big protest on the street with some of our partners in labor, and just to put pressure on the state to take action. Senator Schumer was actually there for a press event and everything. So we just really had to get people together and get folks to like put pressure on. And that's Diane Lemansky, that's her, she's one of our oldest members, and that's her house there, right? Her house is this one right here. So she was like in this big fight. So we shut down the operation with the lawsuit, and then they had a consent order where they're supposed to clean up all this and then plant a vegetated buffer around. This is all ordered by the court. They ignored it. The court put a contempt of court charge against them, and then we testified, Diane testified, and I testified in court. And the operator that owned this, Peter Battaglia, actually got sentenced to jail for 6 months. So environmental crimes like never ever get charged with jail. Like, so don't mess with us, basically. Like there's 2 different times where people got in trouble, but because they just refused to do anything that they signed the consent order to do. But once again, not without people getting together and organizing together and putting pressure on, like even with like a state that has strong environmental regulations like New York, and even with a non-hostile EPA, like before, during Obama administration or Biden administration, we still have these issues where places can get away with this stuff and are directly polluting, directly that is going to affect folks. So really quick, just these are some more of our campaigns. This is another brownfield cleanup, the former American Axle site on the east side of Buffalo. There's PCBs in the groundwater. Lovejoy, we have a tire shredding operation. kind of similar to the concrete crushing. It's like really in close proximity to the residents, and there's no regs on tire shredding. There's no air permit necessary because there's just not a lot of research done on it. So that's something that we're working on. Goodyear in Niagara Falls right now is a big story. That there's a orthotoluidine emissions happening that it's known cause of bladder cancer, and there's like high rates of bladder cancer of the workers and the neighborhood. So we're working on that. North Tonawanda, we have a cryptocurrency mining factory that bought a gas-fired power plant that's trying to run that power plant to do the crypto mining, which we're against because it's polluting the neighborhood for no community benefit. We're doing our air monitoring program. We have mentioned in the other presentations, the EPA, the big EPA monitors. There's not that many of them, and they're not in the community. So we're trying to do our own air monitoring of PM 2.5 with the purple air monitors, like in disadvantaged communities. So that's really all we have time for. I would encourage everybody. We have a lot about community organizing. I have my cards here, like cacwny.org, as we really need folks to get involved, especially like with all the issues we have. We have a hostile EPA now that we're going to have to fight to get these regulations enforced. So even more. So I would encourage everybody to get involved with the organization in your community like ours. And we can partner with, we're working with Jessica Kruger, like who's in the Department of Health. We wrote a grant with her to try to do some collecting some data on the health outcomes. So we can collaborate with students, with faculty, like any way we can. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Oh,
so much,
yeah, no
Grace.
problem.
Really appreciate your talk. Any questions? So before I have a question, I do want to say that, you know, it's a global health symposium, right? But global is also local. Every year we try to also bring a community group to our symposium to share this local aspect, local resident concern. So thank you so much for sharing,
problem.
you know, the activity your group are doing. Yes.
Yes, I do have a question. So I do a little bit of work with Dr. Kruger at Seneca Babcock, and I thought it was a great point, and maybe you could elaborate a little more on it, that, you know, that company is no longer operating, but it's not like the atmosphere and the environment in Seneca Babcock is now perfect and wonderful, right? There's still a lot. And so you made the point about it being, you know, both a social and an economic issue. So if you wanted to maybe talk a little bit more about that with all of these other sites that you've mentioned.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a lot of like intersecting issues that are causing, you know, poor health outcomes for the folks that live in these neighborhoods. With Seneca Babcock, like, yeah, that's one thing that was an acute issue for these folks. But we also have the 190 on their street. Like if we're on Diane's porch there, you can't even hear each other from the noise of the highway. So we have urban highways. We have, there is another concrete crushing operation that's like close to that area, not right on top of the residents, thankfully. But there's a lot of industry. There's rail that goes right through there too. So yeah, so that's just one item that we were able to shut down. But like I said, there's there's lack of access to the healthy food, and there's like other like very intersectional like reasons why folks struggle in that neighborhood.
Yeah, thanks very much.
Hi, Chris. So very nice presentation. So I see that you have many projects. Looks like the projects focus on many places. Yeah, many places in Buffalo. So I just want to have a general question about, could you give us some details about like which, are you serving like, are your organization serving like the entire Buffalo area, or are there any specific locations you've served for?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, because I kind of rushed through, so I didn't go into, we have a membership area. So right now our membership area is the entire city of Buffalo and the Tonawandas. So those, and we have dues paying members that run, like help run the organization. So and it's really inclusive, like you only have to pay like a couple, like whatever money you want to pay per year. And then those members vote on campaigns and they vote on the board of directors. So Niagara Falls is actually not in our membership area, just not that it doesn't need like a lot of focus and attention, but just because we're small and we're kind of like looking to expand out to include that. So that's not like a true campaign. It's more like an advisory role for that one. But yeah, thanks for bringing it up. That's important because yeah, there's a lot of issues, but we have to focus where we can do with our capacity.
Yeah, thank you.
You ready?
Thank you, everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Jen Foster. I'm the Assistant Director of the Office of Global Health Initiatives, and I get to introduce the highlight, I think, of each year's Global Health Symposium. We have 4 very brief talks from PhD students from across the university today. We're really excited to have them and host them to present some of their research for us. Our first talk, do we have Harshita Sharma here? Wonderful. Harshita is a second-year PhD student in the Department of Epidemiology and Environmental Health, and her talk today is entitled Associations Between Exposure to Wildfire PM 2.5 and Pregnancy and Birth Outcomes in the U.S. Harshita.
Hi, so today I'm presenting our study on the associations between exposure to wildfire PM 2.5 and adverse pregnancy and birth outcomes in the US. So just to give a brief background about the wildfires and the outcomes, when we look at the national trends of the total PM 2.5 across the contiguous US, we see that they have been sharply declining from 2000 till 2016. But then 2016 onwards, we see an increase. Wildfires have impacted these total PM 2.5 levels across the US in roughly 3/4 of the contiguous US states, thus negating this 25% of average decline that we see from 2000 to 2014. We see similar trends in the adverse birth and pregnancy outcomes, where we see an increase in the annual person change 2014 onwards. So recently, these studies have examined these associations between wildfire PM 2.5 and birth and pregnancy outcomes, but they are limited as they are at the regional scale. So thus the objectives of the study include that we examine these associations across the contiguous US and explore potential modifications of these associations by individual and area level characteristics. Moving to the methods, our outcomes data, we source that from the NCHS CDC birth certificate data, and exposure to smoke PM 2.5 is predicted through highly sophisticated geostatistical models, which include large array of inputs. We use the DLNM models to assess these associations, and the lag unit was taken as 1 month. We also conduct 2 sensitivity analyses by restricting the counties based on the concentration of wildfire PM 2.5 and also the person contribution of this wildfire PM 2.5 to total PM 2.5. Coming over to the results, when we look at the person contribution of wildfire PM 2.5 to the total PM 2.5, we see that from 2017 to 2018, almost half of the contiguous US was impacted by wildfire PM 2.5. Talking about the study population in the study, almost 3.5 million singleton births are included, and the women who are included have a mean BMI of 28.5. They belong to 25 to 34 years of age. They are mostly white, and they have less than or equal to high school education. Coming to the main results, we see that there are positive associations with preterm birth, NICU admissions, and gestational diabetes. That is in the next slide, in the second trimester. And these are consistent with the sensitivity analyses. But for the gestational hypertension, we see that also in the first trimester. We also see that these associations are modified by individual and area level characteristics like the social vulnerability index of these mothers. To summarize it all, we see that exposure to wildfire source PM 2.5 during the second trimester was found to be positively associated with increased odds of preterm birth, NICU admissions, and gestational diabetes. Furthermore, exposure to wildfire source PM 2.5 during the first and the second trimester was also found to be associated with increased odds of gestational hypertension. These associations were also found to be modified by individual and area level characteristics like SVI and the greenness in the mother's county. As for the future directions, we plan to extend the study to multiple years and also include rigorous statistical analyses. Lastly, I want to thank Dr. Wang, Dr. Mendola, Dr. Jing, Muvu in this department who are involved in the study, the Emory Group, and lastly, the UB faculty, staff, and colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harshita. Like I said, we'll hold questions for this group until the very end. Thank you. It's not easy to give that kind of a talk in 5 minutes. Well done. Our next speaker, whose name I might mispronounce, so I hope she corrects me, is Mandula Wajia Henna, a fifth-year PhD student in the Department of Chemistry at the University of Buffalo, who's specializing in environmental analytical chemistry. Her talk today is entitled Analysis of PFAS and PFOS, Isomer Distribution in Market Fish. Did I say your name correctly?
Hi everyone. So I'm fine with the name. It's Mindula, and some people call me Mindy. It's totally fine. But I'm going to talk about analysis of PFAS and PFOS isomers distribution in market fish. So my advisor is Dr. Zaina Aga. And moving on, I'm not gonna go through the PFAS, what are they, or all the things, because Dr. Attila Gugman gave a very good introduction about PFAS. So I just take this as a recap of it. So PFAS are human-made chemicals that are strongly bound together because of this carbon-fluorine bond, and they are very hard to destroy, well, as Dr. Attila said. So we call it forever chemicals. And also, I'm not gonna go through about each and everything because again, she gave a good presentation about that. So I would say for the sources, when you drink, when you eat, when you breathe, you are getting PFAS into your body. So EPA actually says over 14,000 PFAS compounds around us. So why do we really care? She mentioned again. I'm not going through again, but I would say, as she said, when you even breastfeeding, you are feeding your babies with PFAS. So moving on, I just want to give you where you can find this PFAS. So in this map, I'm pulling up the US, and it's 2025, and it shows how many drinking sites has been contaminated with PFAS. And the blue spots shows how many sites that are exceeding the limits that EPA puts recently. And the dark blue spots are the drinking water sites still contaminated, but below the level, right? Again, as this Dr. Patrick said, there's no zero, so it's everywhere. And then when you go to the CDC website, it shows, and also they say, I took it from there, nearly all the people in US have PFAS in their blood. Over the years, it's reducing, but still it's there. So we got interested in this area, and we wanted to find a good source to analyze PFAS. So we thought, okay, the water sources contaminated. Fish are there. We eat fish, comes to our body, right? So over the years, you can see the fish consumption also going up. So we thought, okay, let's go to the market and buy fish. So we bought fish. I'm not going through again, but we processed and we analyzed in our LCMS, liquid chromatography mass spectrometry, for the fish. You want the good news or the bad news? This is bad news. Every fish has PFAS. So if you look, actually, I haven't put the grouping. The first 3 fish are called benthic fish, where they live in the bottom of the lakes, like feeding on the bottom. So the rest are called pelagic fish, where they live in the water column. So the good news is you can eat pelagic fish than benthic fish, not to get too much contaminated, but all are contaminated. So if you also look at the green box and the light green box, you can see that can be found in every fish sample. As again, Dr. Attila mentioned, they're called legacy PFAS. In other words, they are called common PFAS. PFOA and PFOS. They are the ones that abundant in everywhere, found in everywhere. So when we saw this, we were like, okay, what about PFOS isomers? So isomers, what are they? Think isomers as I'm giving you building blocks, a set of building blocks, and asking you to make anything you want. Somebody can put it in a linear version. Somebody can put blocks in everywhere like a branch version. It's same as the chemicals. So PFOS is known to have so many isomers, and which means they have in different, it's the same chemical composition, but arranged in different ways. So what is the importance actually to look for the isomers? There is the best example, right? There's like this thalidomide compound where it's like a right hand and left hand, one becoming a medicine while other becoming a toxic and giving all these birth defects. So usually, I will go back actually. Usually the normal LC-MS cannot separate these isomers. You need a sophisticated instrument where you can separate them. Luckily, Renew and our lab actually have this sophisticated instrument that has cyclic ion mobility. So what this does is, if I put it in simpler version, it separates the molecules according to their size and shape. So like that way, we got isomers. So if you look at the right corner of the slide, it shows when I put a PFOS compound into the instrument and how it looks. So each spot represents a one isomer. So the intensity of the spot says how much it is in the sample. So you can see, of course, linear is higher and the rest are lower. But here our fish comes in. So benthic versus pelagic. You can clearly see which fish, not people actually, has the highest intensity, benthic, right? So they have PFOS in high intensity and also a lot of isomers compared to pelagic. In this case, somebody can ask why it's important to analyze PFOS isomers. There's actually one study showing, again, relating to our health too, what they have done is they took a chicken embryo and then spiked with linear and mixed PFOS and linear. And they have seen the mixed one had more alterations to protein. So it's important to analyze isomers separately, linear PFOS separately, and see how those affects to our health. So with that, I'm going to thank my group and all the funding sources and here is my advisor, Dr. Tainak. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm sure someone will have questions about this. Thank you. We'll hold them until the end. Our next student that we have coming up is Chan Lee, a third-year PhD student in epidemiology. Chan's talk today is titled The Association Between Hair and Polyfluoroalkyl Substances and Inflammation and Oxidative Stress Biomarkers Among U.S. Adolescents.
Hi, I'm Chan Lee, and it's still a presentation on PFAS. Yeah, we have a lot of PFAS today. So yeah, I'm gonna talk about the association of PFAS with inflammation and oxidative stress biomarkers in US adolescents. I think we already have a strong background on PFAS now. So PFAS are a group of man-made chemicals that are highly persistent and can be found in the blood of 97% of Americans. Adolescents are extremely vulnerable to PFAS because until their immune system becomes fully mature, they are more susceptible to exposure like PFAS and PFAS-related health problems compared to adults. Inflammation and oxidative stress are the potential pathways between PFAS and many of those health problems among adolescents. In addition, because vitamin D is an immunomodulator and vitamin C is an antioxidant, therefore they may also play a role on the association between PFAS and inflammation and oxidative stress. However, there is no study investigated the association between PFAS and inflammation or oxidative stress biomarkers among adolescents. Therefore, The goal of our study was to investigate the association of PFAS and inflammation and oxidative stress biomarkers among adolescents, and also to explore if such associations are modified by vitamin D and C. So the data set we use come from the ENHANCE study, which is a cross-sectional study conducted by CDC. We analyzed a subset of ENHANCE participants aged 12 to 20 during 4 survey cycles. And after excluded around 4,000 participants who don't have the PFAS measurement and excluded the 96 participants who miss the major covariates, we include 1,379 participants in our final analysis. And for our exposure, we included 5 PFAS chemicals, and we included 2 inflammation biomarkers and 2 oxidative stress biomarkers as our outcomes. In our statistical analysis, we incorporated the subsample survey weight for our analysis to account for the oversampling. And in our primary analysis, we conducted the general linear regression between each individual PFAS chemical and each biomarkers. And all PFAS concentrations were log transformed, and we also adjusted for those covariates. And we also further stratified the analysis by vitamin D and C. And next, we conducted the BKMR analysis to investigate the association between the overall PFAS mixture with each of those biomarkers. So these are the results from our primary analysis. We found that the PFNA was significantly and negatively associated with HCRP. And we found the PFDA and PFOS were significantly and negatively associated with neutrophils. And we also found all PFAS were significantly and positively associated with both total bilirubin and albumin. And PFOA has the largest beta value. And in the primary analysis, we found that there is no significance between PFOS and HCRP. However, after we stratified by the vitamin D level, we found only PFOS was significantly and negatively associated with HCRP among the insufficient vitamin D level. And this result is similar for the neutrophil counts. And for both total bilirubin and albumin, we found there is no significant difference across the 2 vitamin D levels. And after stratified by vitamin C levels, we found all PFAS are significantly and positively associated with total bilirubin only among the insufficient vitamin C groups. And we also found the PFOA still has the largest beta value compared to other PFAS chemicals. Those results are also similar for albumin. And for both HCRP and neutrophils, we found there is no significant difference across the 2 vitamin C groups. And next are the results from the BKMR analysis. We found that the overall PFAS mixture was negatively associated with HCRP and neutrophil, and positively associated with total bilirubin and albumin. And overall, based on the negative association between PFAS and the acute inflammation biomarkers, HCRP and neutrophils, we found that PFAS might associated with immunosuppressive effects among adolescents, and such association might be modified by vitamin D. And from the positive association between PFAS and the oxidative stress biomarkers, we found that PFAS might associated with increased oxidative stress among adolescents, and the association might be modified by vitamin C. The strengths of our study, including we are the first study to investigate the association between PFAS and inflammation and oxidative stress biomarkers among adolescents. And we are also the first study to explore if the associations are modified by vitamin D and C. The limitation of our study, including the cross-sectional study design, limit our ability to confirm a causality. And we didn't use the sampling weight for BKMR because of the complexity. And I want to thank all my co-authors for their support and all people from UBEH department for their support. And I also want to thank the ENHANCE study for providing us the dataset, and thank you all.
Chen. Such an interesting study and a lot of information presented in a short amount of time. So I hope we get a lot of questions. Our final speaker today is Ife He, who is a PhD student in the Department of Communication. So Ife's talk today is entitled From Processing Motivations to Environmental Behavioral Intention. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ife, and I just found out maybe I'm the only guy from the social science discipline, right? Today, I'm going to share my recent work with Dr. Jenny Yang on plastic recycling communication, from processing motivation to environmental behavior intention. Plastic pollution has long been one of the major environmental challenges of the world. The figure below shows that the global plastic production has risen rapidly from 1950. In addition to causing environmental degradation, plastic waste also poses serious threats to our human health. So it's crucial to advocate to recycle and reuse to combat the plastic pollution. Communicating pro-environmental message is an effective way to promote public awareness and engagement on plastic recycling. So our aim is to explore how to design a more effective pro-environmental message. According to the heuristic and the systematic model, people process information in two different modes, systematic and heuristic. For the heuristic systematic processing, it refers to an effortful, detailed, and analytical way of evaluating information, while the heuristic processing refers to a surface level of processing information based on the mental shortcuts. Social psychologists have found that the systematic processing is more likely to help people form attitudes and lead to a behavioral change, since it's involved into a mental elaboration and a careful analysis. Also, the motivation influences people information processing as an antecedent. In the default scenario, people may want to form a correct judgment towards specific issues, which is accuracy motivation. But in some other scenarios, people may also want to form a socially acceptable attitudes, which refers to the impression motivation. In addition, we take risk perception into consideration, since it's one of the most important factors predicts people's individual response to the potential risk. So based on the series, we proposed a theoretical model from motivations to systematic processing and risk perception, and then lead to the behavior intention. For our research, we conducted an online survey experiment using a US national sample. We first activated the different types of motivations and then provide the pro-environmental messages, whether highlighting the health risk and environmental risk. After that, our participant answered some questions related to the risk perceptions, behavior intentions, and information processings, and so on. Here are some key findings. We found that first, both accuracy motivation and impression motivations are positively related to the systematic processing in both environmental frame and the health frame. But we also found that the accuracy motivation seems to have a greater relationship with systematic processing, because we can find that the coefficient is much higher. Second, compared to the health risk perceptions, the environmental risk perception may have a greater positive relationship with behavior intention, which is very interesting. Third, systematic processing and risk perception mediate the effect of motivations the motivation on the behavior intention. So based on our findings, here are some implications for communicating plastic recycling and reuse. First, no matter which kind of frames are applied, we think the important first step of persuasion may be motivating people pay more attention to the information by highlighting different kinds of motivations. For instance, highlighting the discrepancy, the potential discrepancy between what people think they know and how recycling and reuse should be done properly may activate people's accuracy motivation, because many US citizens don't realize that the recycling guidelines are updated very frequently. So when the new guidelines are published, we think it's a good way to help people systematically processing the information by activating their accuracy motivation. And second, when aiming to elicit impression motivation, we think that communicators should mention socially close reference people to the individual according to their unique attributes. Okay, that's our main findings, and I want to say thank you to Dr. Jenny Young and for her guidance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ife. Can I have some of the other student presenters, all the other student presenters, come up to the front for some questions? And while they're coming up, can we give them another round of applause? And a little nerve-wracking, and you've all condensed a tremendous amount of information and work into just 5 minutes. You did a fantastic job. Okay, who has some questions from our student speakers? Questions? Questions?
Thank you very much. You all did a great job of presenting. Thank you. But as the analytical chemist, I have to ask Medula a question. So what kind of challenges did you encounter trying to validate that method for your branched and linear chain compounds in fish tissues?
We had so many problems, starting from fish lipids. It's so hard to extract it. And then when you have lipids, as Dr. Attila mentioned, like it binds to the lipids and we are losing. So we have to come up with a method where we can extract it out. And then when it comes to the isomer separation, it's like the instrument has, if I put it in a way, like a racetrack. So you have to keep optimizing until it's like, it's like a race, like the linear comes first and the branch. And if you go over, it goes another round and come with another one. So it's like now co-eluding, like coming together. So we have we had challenges in there. So you have to work with the instrument, day to night to get it better separation. And the other problem is the fish biological samples has a bile acid called TBCA. I cannot remember the full name, but it's called TBCA. And it has this kind of same exact mass as this PFOS. And the researchers has found in the early days when they don't have this particular separation, they are overestimating peoples and giving a very high value, saying it's contaminated. And later on with all these technologies, they found, okay, it's a bile acid. And we are wrongly calculating it as total people. So, but we have validated, we have a separate peaks, we separated, and we all good in that.
So here's a little difficult follow-up question. How do you explain how difficult it is to generate really good data to your EPI student colleagues?
It is hard to say. So you have to, when we are doing experiment, and I know epidemiology department also, they're doing all the control experiments and everything. So we have to start with a control to a spike, sample in the sense you spiking it intentionally and seeing what that looks like, and comes to all the keynote and doing triplicate in the sense you are trying it in several days and the same sample going through all the process and getting the exact one, give the reproducibility 20%, not more than that. If you're out, it's it's not good method, but also you have to go on recovery studies. And it's so many experiments aligned together, but I know, so I'm working with Dr. Lina too, so we also progress and reproducibility and stuff, so yeah. To be honest, Dr. Lina came to my lab. Can you remember? And she did like, oh, let's take the blood out.
You might be putting her with a good time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions?
So thank you. So Harshita, thank you, so much. This may not be as much of a question, but maybe asking, so one of your first slides, you were talking about birth outcomes and showing how essentially the odds of, say, something like low birth weight associated with PM 2.5 has changed over time or gotten greater. It had increased, I think is what I saw. But so one of the questions I was going to ask, first make the point is that there's literature out there now, our group does this, so maybe why I know it, but this group, that there's been changes in the composition of PM. So what's out there, yes, concentrations have gone down, but where the pollution, where PM 2.5 is coming from, so therefore the composition of it has changed. Lots more motor vehicle pollution, lots more organic carbon is part of that PM 2.5, which may explain. We've shown that with cardiorespiratory outcomes that the same mass concentration is associated with a higher rate of disease. So part of I see when you presented that kind of same kind of thing with birth outcomes. So I guess my long-winded question here is, have you looked with those birth outcomes or other types of outcomes and seeing if those have changed over time as well? It looked in your own data to show that.
Yeah, so we do. Sorry. Yeah, so we do see that the trend has increased, percent change that we saw in the, the annual percent change starting from 2014 onwards till 2019 that we saw have increased. And that's what we hypothesize because we also see that starting 2016, we see an increase in the total PM 2.5. And according to our exposure assessment, we do see that wildfire PM 2.5 is a significant amount of that increase.
I was going to say that I agree with that too. Just look into the motor vehicles portion of it. I think that's, working with Monk, that's.
Yeah,
I'm sure you guys can do that, but that's what we've seen as well. So same patterns, looking at the same time. So
yeah. Yeah, thanks for the suggestion. We do plan to include the noise pollution into it. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Other questions? Okay.
Tenley, this one's for you. I was really fascinated by the analysis that you did in Haynes, where you were looking at effect modification by vitamins D and C.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, can you say a little bit why you think that there would be an effect modification, and given that some of these are probably coming from, both the vitamins as well as your PFAS exposure may be coming from diets, how you might disentangle some of those relationships?
Yes, because first, our outcome are the biomarkers for inflammation and oxidative stress, and vitamin D and the cell as a well-known modulator for immune system and the well-known antioxidant. And also for PFAS, the major routine for, especially for adolescents exposed to PFAS, including like consumption of the contaminated water and the food or food packaging. Therefore, all the PFAS may have like some like biological interaction with the vitamin D, especially like, although they are all PFAS chemicals, but actually each PFAS may have different property from each other, and they may like interact with vitamin differently. So that's why we're interested to do this. And also because NHANES have the available of the like laboratory measure, the vitamin D and the vitamin C, which make it more efficient for us to do such effect modification.
All right, thank you. Other questions? All right, from our social scientist.
Yeah, and actually this question is for you, Faye. You noted that the environmental risk perception had a greater positive relationship with behavioral intention compared to health risk perception. And so I'm curious if you looked at or if you have knowledge of the differences by gender, by age, by socioeconomic status, if that influenced that risk perception.
Okay, actually, our analysis results show that the females, the demographics may have a higher level of both environmental risk perception and health risk perceptions, and we also use this demographics as the moderators to find that if there is a moderation effect, but actually. We don't find the moderate effect, but only find that the gender and the political ideology may influence the risk perceptions, just as the previous studies found that. Yeah. Thank you.
Other questions? Dr. Wang?
Hi, Yifei. I also have the question to you. So my question is general. So I'm curious about how your modeling framework can be applied to other environmental factors. For example, you focused on plastics, but for example, for other pollutants like air pollution, for noise or other environmental issues, does this modeling framework still apply?
Actually, I think there may be some differences between, for examples, some research on the climate change. For example, they found that the health framed message may have a higher effect on the behavioral intentions and some like attitudes, but we found that it's not the same in our research. Maybe because the media may frame the different kinds of environmental issues into different frames, right? For example, most the newspapers and social media may highlight the environmental risk of the plastic waste, but for the climate change, it may mention more some social influence, like and some other political aspects. So it may be determined by the how media frame the different kinds of environmental issues, and it will influence how public perceive this kind of this issues. So I think I cannot say that our theoretical model can apply to all kinds of issues, but yeah, we need more tests on this.
Other questions? Well, if not, one question. All right.
I have one for Mendola. So you test those fish, right? The different concentration. It's fascinating. I'm just wondering, when you bought those fish, are they local fish from the local area, or those are all over the place? I'm wondering the difference, whether it's because the fish, how they get accumulated difference, or it's because the different region have different contamination. That's where the difference come from. Just curious.
No, that's actually a very interesting question. We actually, I don't know whether this is on. We actually bought it from a local store. Should I say it? Somewhere near, very near Popular. So we went there, and I chose as the start, I chose the frozen, unfrozen, the fresh fish, right? And then we are looking into it and trying to find the correlations to that too, because there are some where they say they are from even like Antarctica somewhere, and then there are some I put salmon, like they're from there somewhere like farmed in Antarctica or something, but they do like a natural kind of base, like they have your own, but the big water body, but there's a small that caged kind of situation, and they grow. So we are keep trying looking at it and trying to find the correlation. But it was fascinating when we just put it into the benthic versus pelagic. It showed, when it comes to PFAS, the longer chain PFASs, where like, after 5 carbon chain, it tends to go into the sediments because they don't like to be in the water. So when we looked at it, the benthic, they actually are in high concentrated with the longer chain compared to the pelagic, where you have more of like shorter chain. So that was like, that when we saw it, it was like, wow, this is very fascinating. It's like showing the chemistry behind the PFAS and where you live in the water body. So, but we are looking at all the correlations possible and trying to get all the data.
We have anyone? No. All right. Thank you so much for all of you. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for all of you attending our 14th symposium. And I want to thank you all our speakers for your fascinating presentation. And thank you our staff for helping organize the event. Hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.